Andy Stanley, thank you so much for coming on to Hey, It's the Luskos.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It's been a while. Last time I saw you, we were having Mexican food in Alpharetta. I think it's last time. So it's good to see you.
Chips and guacamole. Too bad we don't have
Yeah,
any to share today.
yeah. Apparently, you need some warm food today.
I do. Yeah, it is. We were just talking about before we started recording. It's 9 degrees in Montana, and it's probably what 70 in Atlanta.
Yeah, we just had an we just had an outdoor service yesterday, and we had one this morning for our staff. So a little bit
That
different.
that was so creative how you did it with all those circles on the grass. You were the first person I saw really do that. You had the outdoor stage, and so we do
Oh
that
yeah,
once a
yeah.
month or so.
Yeah, we're trying to do stuff once a month at all of our campuses outdoors, and we're moving kids in slowly. We're making the transition, but we've this whole pandemic thing, it's not a one size fits all, and I've been trying to be careful not to make it sound that way. But for our communities, being in Atlanta, um, we needed to stay out of the building a little bit longer than some folks. So
Oh, of
in
course.
your
Yeah.
case, that wasn't an option. So
No, yeah, come winter, it's like the outdoor service does not look good.
yeah,
People just be like Jack Frost out there with hypothermia, so not
yeah.
exactly great. Yeah, you've led so well through this pandemic, and I know I've texted you how grateful I have been for your leadership and example. Obviously, not in a way to try and imitate, but just to learn how to think like you think. I mean, in how you articulated things, I had our entire staff listen to your teaching you did explaining, your implementation of
Oh,
the
the not
delayed.
in it to win it
Yeah,
message.
just
Yeah.
phenomenal. And just the mentality I appreciate the way you think and the way you've
Well,
led. You've
thanks.
given many pastors from across the country and world strong leadership through this whole time.
Thanks, Levi.
Yeah. Well, I thought we'd start this conversation just with some fun, lighthearted things. I love just learning from examples of people, and maybe obviously for those who have read your book, but maybe haven't seen more behind the scenes in your life a little bit. I thought I would just start with some questions about like morning routine. What is Andy Stanley's ideal morning when you've had one of those victory days? What does it look like?
Well, to put it in context, we're empty nesters. So it is way different now than it was when we had kids living at home. We have 3 kids, they're all in their 20s, 2 are married. One's got a serious girlfriend. So we're in a very different
And
season
one's
of
a
life.
stand-up comedian. So there you have it.
Yes, my one single child is a stand-up comedian. He actually did stand-up for us yesterday. Yesterday was our 25th anniversary as an organization or as a church.
Oh,
So we did some
congratulations.
fun stuff. Yeah, yeah. So we're celebrating our 25th birthday or anniversary. But yeah, my morning routine is I am an early riser and I like to go to bed early. And again, during those early days with kids, that you don't get to choose. You just play by their rules a little bit. But I get up early. Sandra and I exercise consistently. We have for years,
Okay,
and
let's
now we're
define
able
our
to.
terms though. When you say early, I want a number.
Okay, yeah. 5:30. That not 4:30.
Okay.
5:30, 6. Um,
And
and
what time
love
is
to.
bed? What time is in bed to be up at 5:30?
You're getting kind of personal. We're 10 o'clock. That's kind of late. These
Okay.
days. Again, when you're putting kids to bed earlier, and you've got your only time together is after the kids are to bed. It was a little bit different, but we've got a lot of flexibility now. So we go to bed pretty early, which of course makes it easier to get up early. We're both morning quiet time people. So we both get up and go to our little different parts of the house and do our quiet times. And we exercise 2 or 3, 4 days a week, and off to work we go.
Okay. So no reading in the morning, that kind of thing. It's more.
No, you know what, everybody has their own routine. I love Audible. I've gotten to where I listen to a book first, then I buy it either on Kindle or oftentimes on Google Books because of the way I study. So I'm constantly listening to books, and then if I really, really like a book, I'll eventually buy it, usually just because I want to go back to it. And then at night, the other habit we both love historical fiction. So we read, I read for learning during the day or listen during the day, and then I just read for fun at night. So we're both constantly reading historical fiction. So that's
Okay.
kind of our
So
routine.
I did not know we shared a love of historical fiction. So we'll have to get into
Ah,
that in a second. But Audible, how do you, what speed do you generally listen to when you're on Audible? These are
your
the nerdy,
books?
these are the nerdy questions this is to me
No,
fascinating.
this is way more fun to talk about. It depends on the author, right? I mean, some authors, they just, or whoever the reader is, they just read too slow. So, I'm a 1.5, and then, certain books, just the normal speed because they're just kind of heavy and I'm trying to take it in.
If it's dense, and you need to
Yeah,
stick
like
with
your
it.
book. In fact, I have to slow yours down. They require so much thought. So you're like on a half speed.
Oh,
So
stop it. There's
yeah.
no way. Yeah, it's like
Is
3 speed.
and
Let's get through
Sanders says,
this.
is Levi slurring his words? I'm like, no, I just have it really, really slow.
That's really funny. Yeah, but like if I'm listening to like David Ambrose or Stephen Ambrose or something that's more dense history,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
to kind of slow it down just to get. But
Yeah.
then you're like
No,
overwhelmed because
that's
it's like this is going to be 15 hours. I'm in this thing.
right. And that's the problem with audiobooks, right? You look and see how many hours are left.
Yes, always. And what
Yeah.
what about inventory? Because you're listening to stuff, you want to pull something out for use in a sermon or a book. That is a challenge with Audible. What do you
Yeah.
do for that?
Well, you used to be able to take a clip and send it to yourself. And now I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, books I've purchased, they don't let you do that anymore. So if Diane, my assistant, was in here, every single day she was getting emails with clips from
With the
books. And I would
clips.
say, transcribe this.
Yeah.
So then I'm getting email back from her with the book. That's why I quit doing that. And I finally thought, okay, if I'm going to do that, if you buy a book on Google Books or most Kindle books, you're able to do word searches and cut and paste. So if I think I'm going to go back to a book and pull out a section or look for a quote, I'll just go ahead and buy it a second time, which is not financially efficient, but I just don't have time. I'm like you, you're busy as a pastor. I don't have time to read everything I want to read, but the audio, you can do that while you drive and pretty quickly if this is a book you really want to finish or a book you're going to want to go back to.
I get torn because I love a physical book. Like I'm holding here in my hands, The Next Generation Leader, my first
The
Andy
original
Stanley.
version.
This is the
Yeah.
original version, 2003. Andy, which by the way, that photograph.
Look at
My
that.
man.
Come on.
Look at that. Come
It's
on.
worth trying to find that in an archive somewhere.
To those of you on the audio podcast, you can't see this, but it's just an absolute amazing photo. But 2003, I'm a youth pastor. Someone puts this into my hands. I had never heard of you. I devoured it. I read it. I made it my goal to read this every single year for a number of years. And I actually, this is very rare for me. At the end of every chapter, there was questions, and you would have to, you would present these. And I actually, in this copy, have my handwritten answers to all my questions here, and I would go through it. I did the 360 review. This shaped me as a young communicator, as a young leader, and I still recommend it to people regularly. Although now I have the updated yellow version that I give out to people.
It's still a hardback. I'm surprised. The Next Generation Leader, it's really kind of the only leadership book I've written. And it's interesting because publishers, they're like, you need a leadership book, you need another one. I'm like, that's kind of what, leadership isn't complicated. It's hard, but it's not complicated. So I do want to write another leadership book one day. But when I go back to that book, The Next Generation Leader, I still believe all that stuff. That's still core to how I lead. So I'm just honored that you picked it up early. So,
ooh, so good. But what I was trying to say was, when I read a hard book, then the dilemma is how do I make an inventory of the things I like out of it. So I end up in Evernote scanning, because with your phone, you can scan it and then you can OCR and look for the words. And with Kindle, it's tougher because you can underline it. But then if you make a notebook later, every time you copy and paste it, you end up with the citation information at the bottom of your, there's not
Google Books is kind of the same way, but I've just developed my library in Google Books and I just know what's in there. But again, you end up buying the book twice. So not everybody wants to do that. And I get that.
I went hard on Kindle, so I'm kind of dedicated there, but it is an interesting thing. And then do you ever hit, I don't know if Google has the limit, but there's a limitation of the percentage of a book you can underline and copy.
Yeah. Well, the percentage that you can copy, and I won't tell you the story. It's embarrassing, but I bump into that sometimes. So
if anyone from the publishing industry is out there, you're making it hard for your most rabid consumers of your products to do what they need to do with your books. So,
well, I can understand why they would want to put some limit on it, but with the way software is, catching plagiarism has never been easier. So I don't know exactly what the concern is, but
yeah, exactly. Well, you mentioned the gym and you mentioned exercise. What is Andy Stanley's go-to workout? How do you stay in shape?
Well, I used to run a lot. I had a minor back surgery Then I had another back surgery on the same disc, minor back surgery. My doctor said, if I see you again, it's going to be major. You don't want me to see you again. So I gave up running. That was years ago. And then Sandra started working with a trainer in her basement, this woman's basement, doesn't live too far from us. And she kept coming back talking about these great workouts. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I went with her and couldn't move for a couple of days. And I'm like, okay, we can do this. And it's lightweights, it's TRX, it's, kettlebells, it's all the kind of normal stuff, but it's consistent. And we both love doing it together. So we kind of mimicked her gym in our basement. We have a rogue rack and a rogue box and, all the stuff. But it's not machines, it's not cables. It's, push-ups, sit-ups, all kind of pull-ups. And again, it's like anything else. The consistency is what makes the difference. And it's something we actually enjoy doing together. And my wife is strong. Yeah.
That's fun. How about go-to date night? Speaking of you and your wife, what do you guys, obviously it's different in 2020 as everything's involves
Closed.
The mask. Yeah. We were at the airport yesterday. We saw this couple, they had gotten married the day before, 2 days ago, the 24th, when we were recording this. And they both had masks that said their names and said the date of their wedding. It was so, I was like, here we are. Here's the bride and groom now with their custom masks on their honeymoon.
Yeah. Well, my daughter got married in March. And her big wedding, I'll see if I can stay in the screen, her big wedding, as the state of Georgia started getting shut down a little bit by little bit, the wedding got smaller and smaller. And the fourth iteration, and you can appreciate this as a dad, but she called me on a Sunday afternoon. She said, Dad, because her date, we knew that the state of Georgia would be completely shut down before we got to her wedding date, but she wanted to get married. As Andrew, my comedian son says, he says, during COVID, a lot of couples decided to wait to get married, but all the Christian couples were like, we're tired of waiting. We're getting married.
Yes, exactly.
So anyway, they decided to go ahead and get married. So it went from about 400 people to about 20 people at our house, which, it was beautiful and they're happy. And it was a lot cheaper.
I was going to say that.
Got most of our deposits back. So, it's, I forgot what your question was, but.
Date night. But yeah.
Date night. Yeah.
Date night in the pandemic.
Yeah. So, we always encourage couples to have a date night, but honestly, in our marriage, even when we had kids in the home, or now that we have kids not in the home, we've never had a consistent date night. We've had a consistent routine, but not hey, every Thursday night we get a babysitter and we go out. And I think that's actually a great idea. It just wasn't something that we were all that inclined to do. So our version of that was when the kids were old enough to stay by themselves, I would come home, she would get in the car and we would just drive off and we would just drive around and get coffee and then, eventually come back. But we would do a 3-night trip every year, no matter how, even when they were super young, we just got out of town. So, every couple has to figure that out, but you need a rhythm and you need a break, or, things begin to break down. So
yeah, for sure. Those getaways are game changing, especially with little kids. They always cry every time, but it's worth it every single time.
Yep. And it's complicated to leave little kids for 2 or 3 nights with somebody, even if it's a family member, all the stuff and all the routine and don't forget this. And anyway, but it is worth it.
Yeah. And inevitably something goes wrong. A couple months ago, my wife and I, we got big into electric bikes. I don't know if you and Sandra have tried that at all, riding electric bikes. Oh my gosh. We got a couple of them because you get all the joy of a bike ride without being sweaty. And then you go to dinner and you arrive not sweaty, and it's really fun. So we go out on those. We finally got out, babysitter, got, there with the kids, and we were 3 miles from the house. My phone rang and it was like, oh, Lennox ate cashews, which he's allergic to. So he's breaking out in hives. So it's like immediately turn around. So it's always something, but worth the work for sure.
Yeah. Be careful.
Yeah, no doubt. How about a favorite app on your phone? And you can't say the Bible. With apologies to Craig Groeschel.
Favorite app other than, I check in with news on Twitter every morning.
You're not a big Candy Crush guy.
No. And you know what? The whole social media thing, it's so important. You can't live without it. I put a time limit on my phone, that it's built into the OS system. And when I hit it, I'm consistent. I don't go past it unless it's something extreme, So I have to watch that like everybody else. 'Cause we're all addicted to phone. But the thing is, I'm like you, I'm addicted to information. It's not just pictures and, curiosity. I love the news, and I love articles, and there's so many, it's so easy to find things I would never run across other than on Twitter, specifically. So that's probably still kind of my go-to thing. So
Twitter. Okay. Gotcha. How about, you mentioned historical fiction. Now we got you spoke to a real love of my heart. Who are some of your favorite authors? Some recent books you've read that you loved?
if you saw it, I say it's embarrassing. It's not embarrassing because you understand this, because in historical fiction, for those of you who don't know, it's not a book, is it?
No.
It's a series of books, oftentimes, with good historical fiction. So I fell in love with historical fiction, reading historical fiction around 1 to 400 BC through 200 AD. I mean, I read everything and everybody. I can give you names if you want. And then I kind of fell in love with the 100-year war historical fiction between England and France, and just all the history that's a big part of that. And and then a little bit of medieval history. But honestly, it is a great way to understand the culture of a period. In fact, it may be the best way, because a great historical fiction writer, they get that stuff right. And then at the end, as you know, they give you their notes and to say, this didn't really happen, this was true, So I feel like using historical fiction and staying in a period over a prolonged period of time, especially Roman history, there is so much to learn about culture without having to read a book about the culture of a particular period. So let me pull up my Kindle app. I'd be as specific as you want. So, what is there a period that you like to read, or are you just like all of it?
Well, I've loved all of the Bill O'Reilly. I'm reading Killing Crazy Horse right now, which is a little bit less of the fiction side, because he's more trying to create history around it, but you're definitely still feeling it. I've loved recently all of Eric Larson's books. He's got the I don't know if you've read that, the Death in the White City, that serial killer during the Chicago World Fair, and then in the Village of the Beasts, which was the last American ambassador to Berlin, right before everyone discovered that Hitler was nefarious. So we still had an embassy there, but it was like everything was kind of like, oh, it's getting a little creepy here. But also, I'm a huge David McCullough fan. I love all of his books, and that's nothing.
I think I've read all of his books. I've also read, I think, all of and I don't know how to say his last name very well. Conor Goulden. You familiar with him? There's mostly more ancient history. He's probably my favorite historical fiction writer. It's just embarrassing. I have hundreds of books. Yeah,
that's
goes
amazing.
On and on.
And is it more like you see on the Amazon page, people who like this got this, and that's how you find out about new ones?
And I'm kind of picky now. I'll start one and go, oh, this is terribly written. I'm trying to find it. There is a 2-volume historical fiction history around the destruction of Jerusalem, which
Titus and all that.
Yeah, and the first volume is, I don't want to knock the author, it's not very well written, but it's historically pretty accurate. But again, it's an opportunity to dive into a piece of history, especially for Christians. That 70 AD may be the most important date in our faith. And so here is a historian. He drew a lot from Josephus, and then dove in deep. The one of the best, it's hard to find. It's called My Glorious Brothers. Have you heard of this?
No.
My Glorious Brothers. It was written in 1947. It's historical fiction about the Maccabees, the brothers, Judah Maccabee, Simon. There's 4 of them. And it's that period of history that a lot of Christians, we don't know about, between the Old and New Testament, when Greeks ruled Jerusalem and what we would call the Holy Land. And this family created a rebellion against the Greeks. And it's that period of time when the temple was desecrated, and the leaders sacrificed pigs on the altar in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So it's called My Glorious Brothers. It's a unique style of writing, but a guy in our church told me about it, and Sandra read it as well. And it's just fabulous. And again, it's a look into a piece of history that connects the Old and New Testament, but it's written as a story. And then there's actually other historical fiction around the Maccabees as well. So that kind of stuff, to me as a Christian, draws me in because it's connected to what we believe, but it's fun to read because, when you find a good historical fiction writer, I mean, you can't put it down. So
that'll bring the book of Daniel to life. All, like you said,
oh
all the
yeah,
discourse, all that stuff.
yeah, just
Interesting.
Jewish history and Jewish culture between the Testaments. So
what was your favorite David McCullough book so far?
It's 1776.
Oh,
Is
that
that
one's
his
a
book?
great one, 1776.
Yeah. Just that little tiny slice of history with all that detail.
Yes. Yeah. The Great Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge one for me was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I
need to get past. Yeah. I say get past. I just tend to go old rather than, see me,
that feel
current.
It's funny. That's I guess all things are relative. Brooklyn Bridge is not new, but you're right. In the grand scheme of 70 AD, it's still
right.
old.
It's not the 2nd century. It's not the 100-Year War. It's not Napoleon.
It's not the source. Where it starts at like evolution and goes into the tells and incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on from there. How about when you're writing your sermons and you're writing your books? Do you put music on, or do you like silence?
Do I do what?
Silence or music when you're studying, when you're working, when you're
these are such great questions because we live in the same world. It starts off silent, and then as the day gets a little bit going, I need some distraction and I turn on the music. So
is it a specific genre? Are you in worship, classical?
Just
what do you put
something on? That's it can't be music with lyrics because that distracts me. I mean, it's anything from jazz to oftentimes it's just acoustic guitar music or acoustic piano music. I just need something that keeps me seated in my zone so I don't, get up and walk around too much. Do you study at home or at the office for sermons?
I do both. Mostly it's a church now. We did a new building area. So for years I had an office at home and would study there. Then what used to be my home office is my home gym. So similarly, and ironically, we finished that up just before COVID. So it was perfect timing because obviously the gyms were all closed.
Yeah.
But now I'm at church, and similarly, a lot of silence at first and then classical, jazz. I've gotten into blues and even some bluegrass, just something different. Like I'll put on New Orleans jazz sometimes, some brass, even some of the 40s stuff. It's kind of just anything to mix it up. My wife's always like, what are we going to be hearing today? But just something to mix it up a little bit.
Yep.
How about as you think back over your prolific catalog of sermons, are there a few sermon series or messages that to you are like some of your personal favorites?
My personal favorite, not because it was done so well, but in terms of the topic, is a series I did about 2 years ago about the Bible. The Bible is called The Bible for Grown-Ups is the title of the series, The Bible for Grown-Ups. I am so, and this, we've talked about this, I'm so burdened by how easy it is for this generation to walk away from faith because of something in the Bible or something about the Bible. And I understand, I totally get it, because I was raised with that same view of Christianity, not the same view of the Bible, the same view of Christianity as most Christians. Here's the Bible. It's all true. It's very presuppositional. Before you even look at it, decide it's perfect and it's God's word, read it, which is great if you're raised with it. But in a generation where people have access, and this is such old news. Once upon a time, you had to actually pick up a Bible to know what was in it. Now you don't even have to pick it up to know everything that's in it. All those parts people like you and I never preach about, right? So I did the Bible for Grown-Ups. It's a 4-part series for our congregation to say, you can't appreciate the stories in the Bible if you don't know the story of the Bible. And if you don't know the story of the Bible, you don't have the proper context for the stories in the Bible. So I just think in this generation in particular, because they have access to all the information and misinformation in a moment. It's not the way I grew up. So we have to change the way we talk about the Bible, not to change the Bible or to even change a person's view of the Bible. So that series to me is so foundational because I think it goes to the heart of what is my biggest burden for our culture right now, because it's just, we've made the way we've talked about the Bible has made it too easy for people to dismiss the Bible. and then walk away from Christianity because they think they're one and the same, and they're not. Because as I say, every chance I get, there were tens of thousands of Christians for 380 years before anyone said the Bible. I mean, even longer than that, because until the printing press, nobody even had a personal copy of Scripture. So how in the world did Christianity thrive? In fact, in that first 300 years, you know this, the Christians got more done in those first 300 years than the 300 years following, you know, the assembly of the Bible. So what did they know that we don't know? And it's, you know, I just feel like it's more important than ever. So sorry to go off on that.
Those are some seminal ideas. And I actually came across on YouTube, it's out there. You at DTS articulating some of that, you know, when you would
they let
really
me talk about it at DTS,
which is where you graduated from, but you were in unpacking it. And I think that's one of my favorite things about you is your concern for the next generation, your concern for our kids and our kids' kids who are going to be, you know, it's
my kids, your kids.
Yeah. The really, really good stuff. All right. We'll shift gears in a moment, but last question. You know, if you'd asked me a week before Easter, I'd have thought we're not far from this thing being over. We're going to be back, and we'll hardly remember 2020. We'll hardly remember the pandemic. But now that as long as this is dragged on, do you think in our lifetime we will see church looking and feeling like it did prior to the pandemic, or are we marked for our lifetime?
Levi, I don't know. I have an opinion like you do, but so what I'm about to say is just my opinion. I think that the good churches, and I hate to say good churches, I think churches who are genuinely concerned about their communities and people far from God, and who are aggressively, appropriately evangelistic, hopefully evangelical, but evangelistic, we are going to be better because of this. And I'm not discounting the pain. We've lost lives, and in churches as large as ours, we've had every kind of experience imaginable with our staff. So while there's been so much pain, we've learned some things that we're going to carry forward, some things we're going to leave behind. So, you know, the goal in every crisis is to be better for it personally and to be better for it organizationally. Our organization is definitely going to be better for it. And one of the big takeaways that I think should make the church stronger is, as you know, there are churches who have been very anti streaming their services and very anti online. And they were forced to do it. They figured out how to do it. They realize it doesn't hurt, it helps. It keeps people in the cycle of what they're talking about as a church. And they're going to carry forward with their online services. So that's certainly a win. Popping open a laptop in a small group because everybody knows how to work Zoom and other, you know, software. That's going to be a win for our small groups for kids, middle school, high school, and our adult groups. So I think the church should be better for this. And last thing, our communities, if we got this right, our communities should be better off because of the pandemic, because of what the church did in the community during the pandemic. So last week, North Point Community Church, we just delivered a box truck full of books to Fulton. We just delivered over 16,000 books to Fulton County schools because they needed books for parents who are homeschooling, can't buy books. They needed books. We're like, we'll bring you some books. They were tweeting and Instagramming about North Point Community Church all day long when we backed up this truck full of books. So when the need is greater than ever, the church should step up greater than ever. And the churches that they have broadened their ministry and they've increased their good reputation in the community. So hopefully there's going to be some great things that come from this.
That's really
churches.
great.
The churches that kind of freaked out, don't have anybody in mind, and became very internal, and we got to get in faster than ever. And they put all their resources and energy into just getting back into the auditorium. I'm like, hey, nobody's built more auditoriums and rooms in churches I know than me and, you know, a few others around the country. I'm all for gathering people. But this was the opportunity of a lifetime to do something in the community when everybody, think about it, when everybody in the community is thinking about the same thing all over the world. So I think some great things will come from this. I certainly hope so. But I honestly, my father-in-law and mother-in-law's best friends, the wife, they're taking her off a ventilator today. Wow. And she will pass away from COVID-related symptoms. You know, she was in her late 70s, but she wasn't sick, but she was just one of those unfortunate people that it just took her down hard. So, you know, we have all of that too. But in terms of, to the point of your question, the church should be better for it. And the communities around us should be better for it because we were so engaged through it.
Yeah. Wow. Well, great. Um, what was the most difficult pivot? Or, I mean, not small groups, Zoom's easy, family life, assimilation, membership. Like what was the most challenging head scratcher for you in the pivoting?
Well, personally, preaching to an empty room, which I've done before, but I haven't done it before for however many months this has been. So just, preacher to preacher for a minute. I don't know if anybody else in your audience cares about this, but, for 2 or 3 weeks, I preached the way I always preach, but to an empty room. It was terrible. It's just the worst thing. Then I realized, okay, Andy, come on. You can't do what you've been doing in an environment that's different than it used to be. So I began manuscripting all my sermons and reading them. So since the Sunday after Easter, I have read all of my sermons straight to a camera on a teleprompter.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not even a prompter. It's just a big screen under the cameras. And I've practiced and I've watched it like I always do. And I feel like I've gotten better and better pretty quick. And I'm still super passionate about the content, but it helps me stay locked in because 100% of the people are on the other end of that piece of glass. There's nobody else in the room. So there's no point in pretending they're there. But it was just hard for me to stay locked in to the audience, trying to think and preach at the same time. So I just went a whole different direction, and
yeah, wow.
hopefully, so that
I've watched a lot. Jennie and I've been watching, obviously we're watching your parenting series right now and taking all the notes we can. She'll text me, dang it, Levi, we need to listen to this one. We need to rethink everything. Andy's newest message. But she preaches off prompter. I've kind of gone the opposite direction. I've been trying to memorize more and just have a cheat sheet, but it is
that's how I used to do it. Yeah.
It helped for me to get off the stage. Not being on our stage, we set up in a different environment room. That helped me just to develop a new gear, not being in the old environment.
I've seen a lot of guys doing that, men and women doing that. And again, that's one of those things that when we kind of go back to whatever normal looks like, if you've developed a skill in a different environment because you were forced to, of course, you're going to figure out ways to, hey, this Sunday, we're not doing it. You're going to find me back in the living room or whatever that environment was.
Yeah.
Why not take advantage of that?
That's super cool. All right. Well, last week you released your, as far as we could tell, 23rd book. Hello. That's no big deal. Just go ahead and write 23 books real quick. Better decisions, fewer regrets, 5 questions to help you determine your next move. So congratulations on 25 years, 23 books, 32 years of marriage. Is that right?
Yeah. 32.
Wow. Okay. So tell me, about this book. You talk about in it how our lives are shaped.
Just happened to have one right
there
here.
You go.
Better
Product
decisions,
placement.
fewer regrets. Yes, I'm a terrible author in terms of promoting books. I'm weird about it, but I am so excited about this book. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put on my best marketing face and go for it because parents need this book because their kids need these questions, grandparents. So yeah, Sandra and I both super excited about
that.
This
is a great book. And I will say you and Sandra's video well, let's just talk about you and Sandra's videos, period. We could just end there. Anytime you two are on a camera, it's just the best. You're like Rye, and her interrupting you. It's gold. It's comedic gold.
Well, thanks. We've had some fun. So
who is the mastermind behind those videos?
I'll come up with, hey, we need to talk about this. And the thing is, we're not serious people. We're just not. We laugh all the time, unfortunately, about just about everything. It's just kind of how we're wired. So we don't take ourselves seriously. So we start these conversations and the script kind of develops itself, and then I'll write down a few things. But behind the scenes, we do about 50 takes. Okay. So the one you finally, it's like anything else. The one you get, it's like, okay, we got it. But yeah, it takes a while.
I think you two need to bring the show to TikTok. That's what I think. I think you have your drafts folder there. I think all this same content on TikTok, it would slay.
Well, thank you.
Something to file away for a rainy day, for the next pandemic, perhaps.
Yeah.
All right. So the thesis of this book is that our lives are shaped by our decisions and the decisions that we make, which kind of catches you off guard at first because it's so obvious, but then you kind of really peel down to it. Tell me more about that. How did that?
So the sort of the overarching idea is that the questions we ask inform the decisions we make, and the better questions you ask, the better decisions you make. And we all know this because we've all made a bad decision and looked back and said, I should have asked more questions. I should have gotten more information. And we all have a subconscious a list of questions we ask anyway when we make a decision. Am I going to get caught? Is anybody going to find out? These aren't good questions, but they're questions. Is this healthy? When's the last time I did that? What if, should I ask somebody? So in Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets, I'm saying I want to add 5 questions to your decision-making arsenal, to your decision-making grid. And we all have a decision-making grid, because the better questions you ask, the better decisions that you make. So this relationship between questions and decisions is so important, and bringing just a little bit of intentionality to it makes a big, big difference.
So you're saying in our decisions that are good or bad, we already have, especially with the bad ones, all the questions, we just ask them too late. We just do them during the post-mortem.
Or they're just not good questions. I mean, will anybody find out what kind of question is that? But, we've all, asked that. So yeah, so some better questions will lead to better decisions.
Okay. And you bring 5. So what are those 5 questions that we should be asking?
Yeah. So I have a word I've associated with each of these questions. So the first question is, I call it the integrity question. And the integrity question is, am I being honest with myself? Really? You have to pause. Am I being honest with myself? Really? We have a little salesperson that lives inside of us that sells us on bad ideas all the time. And the reason the little salesperson on the inside of us can sell us on bad ideas is we're not honest with ourselves. We start selling our ideas to other people, and then we start believing these justifications that, that we've come up with. So am I being honest with myself? Really? As you know, we've talked about this. The most difficult person in the world to lead is the person in the mirror. And the reason the person in the mirror is so difficult to lead is the person in the mirror lies to us. We just make up stuff and believe it. In fact, one of the interesting exercises I take readers through in the book is I say, imagine going into a retail outlet and the person in the store saying to you out loud the kinds of things you say to yourself in your head. Jeez. Imagine somebody in a retail outlet saying, hey, if you get home and don't like it, you can just donate it. Well, you would walk out of the store. Or, hey, I see that you already have one of these, but this one's newer. Well, what, again, it's just irrational. And when you put it out there in the real world, the arguments we use to sell ourselves on bad ideas are actually offensive. And I say this, when you find yourself selling yourself, that's when you hit the brakes, because you rarely have to sell yourself on a good idea. It's always the bad ideas we spend so much energy selling ourselves on. So that's the first question. The second question is the legacy question. The legacy question is, what story do I want to tell? What story do I want to tell? And this is the one that this one and one other is the one I really tried to equip my children with in life, because every incident, every season, every decision-making environment is eventually going to be in the past, and it's just going to be a story that we tell, whether it's something good or bad, something as big and as bad as a divorce, a job change, a job transition. These are just stories that we tell. Think about it. You and I have reduced high school to one sentence, 2 sentences. Somebody says, Levi, tell me about high school. 2 sentences later, you took 4 years and it's boop, So the question is, when you're telling this part of your story about getting married, going through a marriage difficulty, going through temptation, what story do you want to tell? And I call it the legacy question because it pulls us out of our immediate context. And it's like, oh yeah, when this is nothing more than a story I tell, what story do I want to tell? And in this chapter of the book, I say, never do anything that makes you a liar for life. In other words, when you're telling this part of your story in the future, you're going to be tempted to lie about this part of your story. So don't do anything that makes you a liar for life. That's why teaching our kids this particular question is so important. The third question, I call it the conscience question. And the conscience question is there a tension that deserves my attention? Is there a tension that deserves my attention? And here's what I mean by that. Oftentimes we're making a decision and everything in the left-hand column adds up. On paper, this is an industry standard. This is how everybody does this. This is what everybody's doing. It's not going to hurt me. It's, but right before we pull the trigger, or as we get closer to making the decision or signing the contract, there's just something on the inside that makes us uneasy. So in the book, I say you got to pay attention to that tension. Don't brush by it and don't rush by it. Because in time, if you wait, oftentimes new information surfaces or something else surfaces, and you'll be glad you waited. So is there a tension that deserves my attention? Fourth question is one I've written about before. What is the wise thing to do? This is the maturity question in light of my past experience, my current circumstances, my future hopes and dreams. What is the wise thing for me to do? Not necessarily everybody else. What's the wise thing for me to do? And the last question is the relationship question. And of the 5 questions, this is the one that does not necessarily have a return on investment. The other 4 questions, you ask those questions, you're going to make better decisions. Your life's going to be better. This one might cost you, because the relationship question is, what does love require of me? What does love require of me? I know what she said. I know what he said. I know what they promised. Okay. But as a Christian, as a Jesus follower, what does love require of me? But that's actually the question that changed the world. And that's the question that changes marriages and relationships if we have the courage to ask it. So 5 questions. They are terrifying because they are so clarifying. We almost always know immediately what the wise thing to do is. We almost always know immediately if we're lying to ourselves. But again, that's why I say better decisions, fewer regrets.
Brilliant. And I love that this book is 99 pages. It is not intimidating. It is not overwhelming, but man, Andy, does it punch out of its weight class. I mean,
Well, thanks.
no, I'm serious. I mean, you think about, so many books that I've read, 200, 300 pages, usually they come around that, 55,000 word mark. And this guy, literally, I read it in 2.5 hours, just sitting there, but I couldn't copy and paste to my Evernote enough. You start out saying, just basically showing how our lives are shaped by our decision making. And you say, no one plans to complicate their life with a bad decision. The problem is, and what moved me to write this book is, too many people don't plan not to.
Yeah. That's
Dang.
heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have a plan. We have a plan for everything, but we don't plan not to destroy our lives with bad decisions. So was there a specific thing in your mind that kind of got you to sit down one day and go, okay, this is the book I'm going to write? Was there someone you were writing to in your mind, or what was the thinking here?
Well, I dedicated this book to my kids, because again, these were the kinds of things that we just came back to over and over in our conversations. And again, they're all in their 20s, 2 are married. So we're on the backside of that, hold my hand parenting. We're in the coaching role. We're not, you're always parenting. So we're coaching. And I just thought I would just like to take these sort of 5 ideas that I've talked about in different contexts, bring them together and just give people a quick list. And again, I wrote this book so people could read it in a couple of hours and hopefully take the 5 questions and put them somewhere where they become the decision-making filter. Now, one of the pushbacks is, well, Andy, now that we know the 5 questions, do we need the book? Well, I'll let you decide that. But one of the things I talk about is there is a big difference between knowing something and doing something. And as a pastor, we see this all the time. We'll say something to people, they'll be like, you're right, I know, but there's no correlation between being right and knowing and actually doing anything. So hopefully, as people read the book and are kind of drawn into the grit of some of these questions, it'll take hold and again, become a habit in terms of how they make decisions.
Well, I think everyone should get this book. I think people should give this as gifts. I want my kids to read it. I know that there's a lot more than just reading those 5. As you were going through them, they hit hard, but as you unpack them, as you show what Joseph looked like doing it and what Jehoiakim looked like flubbing it with Sennacherib and with Jeremiah's advice, and just how different it would have been if he'd have sat down. And I just imagine if someone literally sits down and asks himself the question before a purchase, before a move, before a new relationship, I think about even just the tone at times as a leader you can set if you come in on a bad day. And it's just like, what story do I want to tell on the back end of this? I lead a small group, and this morning I was talking to the guys about it because someone brought up pornography and just what things work when you're being tempted by porn. And it's like, even just thinking that right there, what story do I want to be able to tell?
Yeah.
to my kids and to my wife one day. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Now, you bring up the idea, and you mentioned it real quickly, the most difficult person you lead is yourself. How do you see these questions aiding someone in taking responsibility of their own personal leadership?
Well, again, all five of these questions are internal. In fact, in the book, with every question, I say this. I say, even if you don't plan to act or to follow through on your answer to this question, at least ask yourself the question. Even if you are not going to make the wisest decision, at least answer the question, okay, if I was going to do the wise thing in light of my past, in light of my current circumstances, in light of my future hopes and dreams, if I was going to do the wise thing, what would it be? If I were to tell myself the truth, what would I say to myself? If I really want to write a better story than the one I'm about to tell, right, that I'm going to eventually have to tell or hope nobody asks me about, what would I do? What would I do if I was really trying to write the best story of my life in this particular season? So if nothing else, being honest with ourselves, and even the relationship question, what does love require of me? Okay, you don't have to go in there and apologize. You don't have to go in there and own your slice of the relationship pie, but at least answer yourself honestly. What in this circumstance does love, not what does he deserve or what does she deserve? What does love require of me? At least ask the question, answer it honestly, and then decide if you want to do anything with it. But it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to know, but it may hurt a lot if you don't know. So all of this really comes back to self-leadership, because we determine the direction and quality of our lives by the decisions we make. And for folks like you and I, and for many of your listeners and people who are watching, it's not just our lives, right? I mean, when, the story of Levi Lusko's life is going to influence everybody in your family. This isn't just about you. It's not just about me. When you make an unwise decision, when I make an unwise decision, there's shrapnel, there's trickle down into the lives of the people who trust us and are looking to us for leadership. So it's way bigger than us personally, but it begins on the inside with that, that brutal honesty that is so easy for us to avoid.
You write that great leaders last because they lead themselves first.
Yep.
And I think that that one sentence is a perfect example of the economy of words with which you write this. That it is a truly easy read, and that it's 99 pages. And yet that sentence right there, you could let it sit there. It speaks volumes. And I think there are gems like that literally on every page. I mean, you are a walking tweet waiting to happen. The way you write, it's like, oh my gosh, great leaders last because they lead themselves first. And just to think
Thanks.
about the way it's going to change your organization, your family, people listening who, maybe you coach a soccer team, maybe you run a Chick-fil-A, maybe you lead a youth group. But to think about, we think about leading our organizations and our teams, we forget about how important it is just to lead ourselves.
Yep. That's where it starts.
Now you talk about, and I wish we could spend more time on all these questions. Of course, people will be able to get the book, but the tension question, I think that one is really, really important because it's indefinable. The way you articulate it is there tension that deserves my attention? But it may not be a tension you could put your finger on. You talk about it being more, you just may have a feeling. And if you actually listen, there's something there.
Yeah. And that's why that tension is so easy to ignore, because it very rarely has any reason behind it. And also in the book, I talk about this circumstance we've all had where I'm feeling good about a decision, and then somebody comes along and they ask a question I haven't considered, and then they just walk off. And it kind of creates a tension. And in those moments, my temptation, of course, is to discount the source of the question and say, well, they've never pastored a church. They've never raised kids. I mean, look at their kids. Why should I take that comment seriously? Which is always a mistake. It's the genetic fallacy. It's like, hey, the source, somehow pollutes the information. But oftentimes somebody just asks that question and they walk away. And then now I've got this tension that I didn't have before. And I try to, squelch it and I try to ignore it. But in the book, I say that's almost always a mistake. Just let it sit there, let it bother you until it doesn't bother you anymore, or let it bother you until you discover why it's bothering you. But that
you tell the story of your mom calling when you're about to close on a real estate transaction, right?
Yep. Yeah. We were going to sell a piece of property, and she's I mean, my mom's like, what? But we didn't sell it. And I'm telling you, it's where we live today. If we had sold that, I mean, we were listing it. We were like, we'd bought it. It was way out from where we lived, and Sandra didn't want to live out there, and it was too far. And I'm like, that was a huge mistake. Let's sell the property. And my mom, of all people, said, she said, you'll regret selling that for the rest of your life. I'm like, what do you know about real estate? You don't even know exactly where it is. You're not going to live there. I mean, and I was so irritated with her. She was 100% right. And that would have been a disaster to have sold that lot that we have lived on for 20 years. So,
but it was enough to create some tension, and you took the time to listen to it. And that's what you're saying is, if we just are not in such a hurry, and that's really the key thing about these questions, is to ask them is by nature going to slow down. You're going to, you're not going to blaze through it. And I think we get the adrenaline rush of a purchase, or we get the dopamine hit of, whatever in the moment. And we just want to blaze through it, especially when it comes to dating, which I don't think there's a better communicator on the subject of sex and dating and relationship than you. New rules for love, sex, and dating.
No. Yeah.
Well, in New Rules for Love, Sex, and Dating, and you've had that series in many different forms and many different iterations, and it has been, to me, seminal. Your work on it has helped me craft my own worldview and communication. Anything that I've done is definitely, I mean, literally in my book, Andy, Swipe Right, I, at the very end, say, look, I would never have been able to write any of these things had I not first, excuse the expression, gotten pregnant with the ideas that I, first was exposed to through Andy Stanley. So,
and I appreciated that very much, but there is so much great stuff in that book. I would never begin to take credit, but I'm glad it at least sparked some ideas. So, and the title, of course, was brilliant.
Oh, come on. Yeah. But the ideas of, try and become who the person you're looking for is looking for. And you do also quote it here, which I think is so important for someone who's just gone through a divorce or a bad breakup. And I'm going to quote it here. You, and this is under, love and regrets. You say, my general counsel for years has been to tell people to pull up their calendars and mark the day 1 year from the day their divorce was legal, not the day they split, the day the divorce was legal. Most men roll their eyes. Women are often quick to assure me the last thing they want in their lives is another man. In both instances, I insist they pull up their phones, mark the day, and it's no dating for that year. Why is that so important?
Well, because we are human beings and we can't stand to be alone. We can't wait to be apart from somebody. Next thing you know, we just don't want to be alone. We were made for community. So it's perfectly natural to want to find another relationship. But as you know, the quicker, to the point of these questions, the quicker we make those decisions, oftentimes those are just not really good decisions. So the wait and don't date for a year. I get email, direct messages, mentions constantly from people who say, Andy, I just got to the end of my year. And then they talk about, I'm so grateful, I'm so glad. Or I will meet people who walk up and say, Andy, you don't know us. We've been married for 3 months. I met her for about a couple of months right after I finished my year off dating. Thank you for that advice. We would have never met otherwise. So and again, tongue in cheek, people say, well, why 1 year? And I say, because I don't think I can get you to wait 2, so
hilarious.
Because we all just need a little healing and patching up, especially after big relationship breakups or
just a reset. Sure. It's a hard reset for the soul.
It is.
And
we renew our minds because again, going back to something I talked about in the book, people ask, why don't we learn from our own mistakes? Well, we don't learn from our own mistakes because we're pretty sure it was somebody else's fault. And as long as I'm not around that somebody else, I probably won't repeat my mistake, which is completely wrong. So because so many people come out of relationships, especially marriages, pointing their fingers, their assumption is, well, now that he or she's gone, I'm ready to go. I'm going to make a better decision this time. Nope. You need time and you need to renew your mind. So time is your friend.
And you always warn people that the moment they do that, they're going to meet that person within 2 months.
Exactly. They're going to think they just met that person. And you know what? I have also met couples who that's what happened to. And one of them said to the other, you know what? I'm not dating. I took a year off, call me or in June, they'll set the date out there. And sure enough, they'll reconnect later. And it works out, but they're just in a better place. So
Brilliant, 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 brilliant. Before we end this, I'm going to be respectful of your time. I need to know more about Wally the alligator. You in the chapter about viewing our life as a story to be told, you just rushed past that like it was no big deal. You're like, oh yeah, my pet alligator. My mom would hang a towel on the door if he got out. And I'm like, wait a
yeah.
minute. And then you just move on telling a story about your grandfather, the preacher who, it's just. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I need what? How long was this alligator?
Okay, this was my mom's dad. And he was he was married 4 times. That's unusual now. It was really unusual back then. So he was a character. He was so much fun. He kept money in jars in his freezer. He sewed diamonds into the hems of his curtains. We have no idea what he was up to or into, but he was so much fun. So I went to stay with him one summer as a kid. And on the way home, he said, would you like to have an alligator? And what does a boy say when their grandfather says, would you like to have, who would say no? So we pulled over and this guy was selling alligators out of a barrel on the side of the road. And he bought me an alligator. And again, this was many, many years ago. It wasn't illegal. And so I got home. We lived in Miami.
Before Tiger King.
Yeah, this was before a lot of things. And so I came home with an alligator and kept it in the aquarium. And again, every once in a while it would get out. And I would, like I said, I would come home. My mom had put a towel under the door, so we at least knew Wally was somewhere in my room. So
that said, you go find that reptile so I don't have to.
Exactly.
How big did this lizard get?
Well, alligators will only get as big as what you keep them in.
Whoa.
So that's what I was told. And he grew just a very little bit, and I kept him in an aquarium. And then later I heard that later, I didn't know that as a kid, that, oh yeah, whatever their environment is will determine to some degree how large they grow.
That'll preach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it will, now that you mention it.
The spinoff, I'm waiting for the spinoff sermon. How big is your alligator? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your environment? Your leadership alligator. This is the next podcast. Very good. Yeah. Well, this book's phenomenal. I can't thank you enough for writing it. I'm going to incorporate these questions into my self-leadership. I hope everybody out there will listen to it. I also want to start incorporating please show me your will for my life into my prayer life. You talk about having that be a part of your prayer every evening. Is that still something you're doing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, every season. And again, at the end of the book, I talk about my dad teaching me to pray that as a kid and teaching my kids. And again, it's just learning to live with our hands wide open. God, what do you have for me in this season? What do you want me to do? I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm good at, but what do you have for me? I just want to live my life to the very end with that posture. So that prayer just kind of keeps my hands open.
You write that seeking God's will for our life will lead us into deeper peace. I mean, that is just so powerful.
Yeah, I told my staff today, we had our 25th out on the lawn celebration, and part of my little spiel to them, I said, there's no better place to be. There is no better place to be than in the center of God's will, and to wake up every day and say, God, I know what I can do. I know what I can't control. So I'm going to do my part, but my life is in your hands. So that's where I want to live my life.
Man. Well, great example that you are to us as leaders and as a dad. I'm going to not soon forget the card you handed your daughter with the word, or foster daughter with the word honor on it.
Yep.
And there's so much in this book for parents and leaders. I won't spoil that because I want people to read it, but this will challenge parents and leaders and every sort of person. So thank you for writing it.
Well, Levi, it's great to see you, and it's great to chat with you. And thanks for allowing me to leverage your important platform to talk about something that's important to me. I really appreciate it.